property is located, and what the condition of the home is. So some homes need fixing up, maybe there's holes in the wall, you know, there's different things that we could do to get you into the house still, but that may not fit into different types of financing options.
Where we look at kind of three main areas is how I think of it. I think of you running this race and you have three hurdles that you need to jump over in order to become pre-qualified. So number one is your credit. So we pull your credit report and we take a look at that. Number two is your debt to income ratio. So we're gonna see what you have for monthly expenses for other loans like student loans, credit cards, those sorts of things. And then how much money do we have left over to go towards a potential house payment? So we're gonna look at debt to income ratio. And then the third thing that we're gonna look at is funds to close. So Hanno kind of went over these different loan programs. Like if you're doing FHA, you need a certain down payment. Conventional, you need a certain down payment. VA, zero down, but you still maybe have closing costs. So we need to figure out, do you have the appropriate amount of money in order to close the transaction? So we go through a mortgage application with you, and what's on that mortgage application is we're going to ask you your social, date of birth, so we can get the credit report pulled. We're also going to ask you for 2 years of residency history, 2 years of employment history, because depending on your income type, if you're base pay and commission, you know, you might need to be on the job for a certain amount of time to use all those different income sources. We're going to ask you asset questions. So how much is in your checking and savings? How much do you have maybe in your investments? Those are all sorts of questions that we're going to go over with a pre-qualification appointment with you. Well, some pitfalls to avoid post pre-qualification and pre-approval. So, you know, don't lose your job because we can get your pay stubs, and then if you lose your job, then everything kind of is a moot point. The other thing is that what I've seen pop up from time to time is if the job that you're working, or maybe the employer that you're working for, you take a different role and then your pay structure changes. Okay, so like for example, we recently had someone in our office that worked for Enterprise and was getting base pay 6 months ago at a certain level, and then they've now taken a different role and they're getting a lot more commission pay. So they didn't find a house for 5 months, and that change has impacted them. So if you have something like that could happen, you want to be communicating that information to your loan officer so they're aware of that and then can be, you know, advising you accordingly. But the other important thing for you to do is to not accrue new debt prior to closing. You know, so the most common one would be you need furniture. You know, you apply for a furniture account before you close, and that impacts your debt to income ratio, and that can show up on what's called a checkup report. So you don't want to be doing that. You know, stay in love with your spouse. Don't start a divorce. Or get sued by someone.
Technically, you can choose which title company you want to close at, but it just makes sense to close at the same title company as the seller because you get a discount on your title insurance.